It's story time. The Shifting Face, submitted by Edward. I'm of Filipino heritage and have been living in Canada since 1976. Just to be clear, I've never seen a ghost, UFO, Bigfoot, reptilian, or any of that crazy stuff. However, I did have a very scary experience in the late 1980s. This incident occurred at my first real job after graduating from Centennial College. I was working for an elevator company in Toronto. The building we were in was over 100 years old. Whether this environment influenced the behavior of certain employees, I don't know. As a young man, I was still quite naive about life in general. I was the youngest employee in the accounting department. Since I was the youngest and newest, I was expected to do all the things that nobody else wanted to do, such as buying a large pizza for the group on Friday. I had no problem with that. In fact, I actually enjoyed getting out of the office for some fresh air. One of my coworkers was a woman in her mid-60s. I will refer to her as Agnes, not her real name. I thought she was still quite attractive with long blonde hair and slim build. From our daily conversation, I found out that she was a dedicated yoga practitioner. One hot and humid August, there were 4 of us working late, trying to tidy up both accounts payable and receivable. Finally, around 9:30 p.m., we were done, all set to go home. Agnes approached me and asked if I could give her a lift home since her car was in the shop and it would only be about a 15-minute drive. I was hesitant since I was so exhausted, but since I found her attractive, I said, no problem. We had been working together and flirting for about a year, and so, being a young guy, a part of me was hoping that I might get lucky with Agnes. When we got to her condo building, she asked me if I would like to come upstairs for a bite to eat. Since I was feeling very hungry by now, I said yes without hesitation. This next detail is important to the story. She was wearing a sleeveless summer dress that ended just above her knees. Being a woman in her 60s, she had some wrinkles and sagging on her face. She motioned me to sit in the dining room as she started preparing sandwiches, and I saw her open the fridge to get some sodas. As this was going on, we were making small talk about the office and life in general. As she walked back and forth in the kitchen, I could not see the front of her face, only the sides. All of a sudden, the room temperature dropped by about 5 degrees. I was trying to figure out why. Is it because she opened the fridge? Did the air conditioner turn on? Before I could finish my thought, she turned around and I almost went into shock. I was literally frozen in fear. As I mentioned earlier, this was a woman in her mid-60s, right? Now, all of a sudden, her face was smooth and tight, like a 19-year-old. What made this even creepier was that the rest of her body was still that of a woman her age. As she walked towards me, she had a devilish smile but didn't utter one word. As she got closer and closer, I started saying to myself, Edward, get up. When she was a couple steps away, I finally got up and ran towards the door, grabbed my shoes, did not put them on, opened the door and ran towards the elevator. Only when I was inside the elevator did I finally put my shoes on. Sapphire, you are probably saying I had an overactive imagination or hallucinated the whole thing due to tiredness. Neither. The next morning, when we were alone, I confronted her and demanded an explanation as to what went on the previous night. Again, with a devilish grin and chuckle, she admitted to performing some ritual to please a demon in return for a youthful appearance. She added, Edward, when you reach my age, you will understand why I did what I did. She asked me if I would be interested in knowing this ritual. I said no, since I don't want to end up in hell. About 9 months after this happened, she left the company, and I don't know what happened to her. I am now in my late 50s, and yes, I have a better understanding of her motivation to make that deal with the devil. I just hope, in the end, She repented and returned to God. Thank you for your story, Edward. It sort of reminds me of that scene in The Craft where one of the girls changes her eye color and then her hair color. I'm not exactly sure which ritual or demon she was working with, but there are a lot of ways in magic to alter your energy and therefore your appearance. It is a very real thing. Personally, I think if you take away the magic and demons of it all, I don't think this is any worse than altering your appearance in any other way, whether it's with makeup or surgery. And honestly, the way that this story sounds, it kind of feels like you were already under some type of spell way before her face even changed. Thanks for joining me today. And did you know that I offer bone and tarot readings? You can schedule a session at storieswithsapphire.com. Salamat and good night.